It is with great pleasure that we thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. You chose to be here, not by obligation, but out of a shared commitment to support the efforts of the coalition. Your presence speaks to the values we all hold dear. The pursuit of a brighter future for ourselves, our families, our children, our neighbors, and our friends. For Canada, our home. And our home stands proudly beside our valued friends to the south. The United States remains our closest ally, with deep bonds of family, friendship, and shared purpose that crosses the border. In honor of both our American guests and our Canadian hosts, we now invite you to stand for the singing of our cherished national anthems, the Star-Spangled Banner, followed by O Canada. Bow your heads, I'm going to say a blessing for the meal we're about to receive. O Lord, blessed are we gathered here, grateful for this meal and the hands that prepared it. May this food nourish our bodies and this moment nourish our spirits. May we share kindness, peace, and joy as we break bread together in unity. Amen.
So we're going to start off this evening. I'm here with my colleague Todd Stafford. My name is Shelley Bacon, and I'm with a company called Northern Cables, and we're located in Brockville, Ontario. Sitting with us are several of our other colleagues at our table number 17. And we'd like to introduce members of the board, but before we do that, I'd just like to make some comments that we manufacture all of our goods in Canada, and we buy all of our raw materials from North American suppliers in the United States and in Canada. But we find it very difficult. Perhaps some of you heard some of Barry Zuckelman's comments recently. We find it very difficult competing with material coming in from offshore that does not have to abide by world prices. And I just want to make that point that we too in our industry suffer from this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm Todd Stafford with Northern Cables, and we're going to introduce the Board of Directors of the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada. I'll start with Jocelyn Banford, who's our founder. Catherine Swift, who's the president. Peter Gossman is the vice president. Veso Sobot is the executive director. And Kurt Farquhar is our treasurer.
Joining them on the board, we have Byron Nelson. We have Scott Hughes. We have Jared Roundtree. We have John Galt. We have Joe Oliver. We have Brian Gould. We have Todd Stafford. And myself, Shelley Bacon. On the board, we also have some special advisors. We're fortunate to be acquainted with these gentlemen. We have Dan McTeague, who serves also on the board for us. We also have Robert Lyman, who gives us great advice.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for coming tonight. My name is Catherine Swift, and I'm the president of the CCMBC and chief tormentor of politicians whenever possible. I would like to just announce our VIPs, our special guests that are here tonight. As you may know, we chose to have a bit of a US-Canada theme this evening, which is new for us. We've normally had Canadian politicians and business people here in the past, but given everything that's going on right now between our two countries, we thought it was appropriate to have some of our US friends join us for the evening. And some of them will be speaking later as well, but we have Congressman Pete Sessions from Texas. And they say don't mess with Texas, right, Pete? Do they still say that? They do, okay. I wish we had a nice motto like that. I've always thought that, in the US, it's basically, liberty and happiness. And in Canada, it's peace, order, and good government. Blah. In any event, we also, of course, are very happy that the Honorable Pierre Poilievre and his lovely wife, Anna, were able to join us tonight. In terms of some of our business honorees, we have two of the most dynamic players in the Canadian oil and gas industry. Sue Riddell Rose of Rubelite Energy. Sue? And the biggest producer of natural gas in Canada. Have you ever heard a lot of bad jokes about that before, Mike? Yeah, I figured as much. Mike Rose of Tourmaline Oil. I'm also very happy that the Consul General for the U.S. Embassy in Toronto, Baxter Hunt, was able to join us tonight. And we're happy to have actually a lot of former politicians, senior business people, and so on. Joe Oliver was mentioned earlier. Joe's on our board and has been a great source of wisdom. Of course, former finance minister for Canada under Stephen Harper. Anthony Furey, mayoralty candidate, councillor, journalist, and author. And Anthony, I just want to say the third time's the charm, okay? So we want you to run again. Peter Van Loan, I'm not sure, I haven't seen Peter tonight. Did he make it? He was on the list. Oh, he's there. Hi, Peter. Thank you. Former Conservative MP. Dean Allison, current Conservative MP, wherever he's sitting. Thank you, Dean. Steve Yamada, Whitby councillor. Steve here. Parthy Candevel, Toronto City Councillor. Is Parthy here? Michael Thompson, Toronto City Councillor as well. Is he here? There he is. Wei Dong Pai, a TDSB School Board trustee. Haven't seen him yet tonight. Is Wei Dong here? He's the only sane person on the TDSB, just for the record. Where are we? Christina Mitas, Ontario Conservative MPP, now on the executive of the Conservative Party of Canada. Stella Ambler, former Conservative MP, Municipal Watch. And clearly she brought quite a few people with her tonight. Good for you, Stella. Anthony Danko, former Halton School trustee. Tor Stoutland, founder of the News Forum. Where's Tor sitting? And of course, that is where the Coalition has our globally celebrated show, hosted by Jocelyn Bamford, and some of us as guest hosts from time to time, Canadian Innovators. And Tor has done yeoman's work in promoting a very, very good new channel. And it's not that new, it's a few years old, but it's relatively new. And everybody should pay attention to the News Forum if you haven't already. Jamil Javani, I haven't seen Jamil here yet tonight. Did he get here? Not yet? Sorry, he's gonna be late? Okay. Jamil was a former award winner of our coalition a couple of years ago and subsequently was elected as a member of parliament, as you probably know. Brad Bradford, Toronto councillor and mayoralty candidate. Brad? The Honourable Tony Clement, former member of parliament and minister. Dan McTeague, who was mentioned earlier, one of our special advisors, former Liberal MP, and now president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. The Honourable Jim Karagianis, former Liberal MP and Toronto councillor. Jim, are you here? Dean French, Keystone Awards, that you'll be hearing a little bit more from later. And Jerry Agar from News Talk 1010. Did Jerry make it? I'm not sure. Oh, you did. Thanks, Jerry. Hadn't seen you yet tonight. Anyway, I sure hope I haven't missed anybody because we have a lot of great people here tonight, and I think you're all VIPs. And actually, my older son Alexander's here, and he's a VIP to me. Alex? Enjoy your starter, and we'll be back in a little bit.
So frequently I have been asked, why did you start the coalition? What was the emphasis? And the reason I started the coalition was because small to medium-sized business were not being treated fairly by the politicians of this country. And originally I thought naively, oh, they just don't know. We'll tell them that their policies are hurting the job creators and the jobs of the country, and they will quickly change the policies. But we have found out that that was not the case. We were not treated fairly with cap and trade, where our small business that was didn't emit enough to participate in cap and trade had a $40,000 electricity bill $23,000 was global adjustment. It was the largest line item on our bill. And then with the feed-in tariffs, paying for wind and solar, it relied almost completely on small to medium-sized business. And then again with the carbon tax, if you looked at our bills, again, $40,000 from Enbridge, and $18,000 was the carbon tax, the largest line item of our whole gas bill. It's crazy. When we started, we were told, you guys need to keep quiet. You can't rock the boat. This isn't how you get favorable policies. But we found out that rocking the boat was the only way we would get favorable policies. It used to be that politicians were people that had been successful in their lives and their business, and they felt like they needed to get back. Increasingly, and not everybody, but a large majority don't have an understanding of economics and business. They've never worked in business. So we need to make sure that they understand how their policies affect job creation. They say that you teach people how to treat you, and we have allowed politicians to treat us poorly. Earlier today, Congressman Pete Sessions said that businesses must be the solution. And unless we want to continue on the path that we're on, we need to be the solution. And that means we all need to be brave. We need to rock the boat. We need to speak up for policies that affect our employees and their families. And that's what we're here today. I am so blessed to be with all of you folks that come year on year again and make a difference, because by being here, you are sending a message. And as our board member John Galt says, we need to grow a coalition that is too large to be ignored. So that's what we're here to do today. And if I have one request of you, it would be that you bring 2 friends to either join the coalition or come to the party next year. And I know you're tired. There's nobody more tired than me, I'll tell you. But you will rest when you're dead. And while we're here, we're gonna work hard. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to my husband who lets me do my job and do this. And every year I promise to be a better wife, and every year I fail. Thanks for coming out, everybody, and please bring your friends. Sorry, one more thing. I am introducing a man that needs no introduction around this room, the leader of the Conservative Party, and the gentleman that took the time to take pictures with all the kids, and they're thrilled. Please give a very warm welcome to Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you to the coalition of people who employ the people who make stuff, build stuff, fix stuff, and move stuff. You employ the people who are the backbone of our country, the workers for whom we are fighting, the investors who make it possible, and thank you for having the courage, Jocelyn and Catherine Vesso, to actually stand up and fight for yourselves. Because we know that in politics, it's very simple. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And for too long, the entrepreneurial class in this country who create opportunities, who match products with people and workers with paychecks, have been trampled on by big, intrusive government that sees you as basically a limitless cornucopia of cash to turn to whenever they want to fund their latest out-of-control spending agenda. But your organization, unlike so many others, has had the courage and backbone to stand up and fight for your members, to tell it like it is, to oppose the carbon tax, C-69, the anti-energy laws, and countless other policies so that we could fight back, win these debates, and go forward to win the next election and bring forward a truly free enterprise country for all Canadians. We have some incredible people here today. But first of all, we have two of our very impressive members of Parliament, Dean Allison from the Niagara region, and we have the great and not so newly elected anymore, Member of Parliament from the Durham region, Jamil Javani. Am I missing anyone? Any of our current crop here other than those two? And then we've got so many of our previous Conservative alumni. I won't go through them all, but they are passing wisdom down the ages to our incoming members. So please go seek out our newer, you're not so new anymore, but go talk to Peter Van Loan and Tony Clement and, of course, the great Joe Oliver, the last finance minister in Canada to balance a budget. Isn't that something? If you're a finance minister in Canada who's balanced a budget, you're pretty much on the endangered species list now. But we love Joe, and he's going strong as ever. And we have some incredible guests of honor. Mike and Sue, two of our greatest energy entrepreneurs from the natural gas sector, who will be honored later. Tourmaline, your company, the biggest producer of natural gas in Canada, I understand. Now we could only get it somewhere to sell it, right? And for $15 instead of $3, right? That's the plan. And of course, we have a great friend of Canada, Congressman Pete Sessions from Texas. Thank you, Congressman. You know, the congressman welcomed me to Capitol Hill, I think it might have been twice, actually. And he, of course, has been very gracious in coming back to Canada. He's an advocate of free trade, tariff-free trade, an open economy that allows our goods and services to travel across our border, and a solid alliance to protect our continent against the bad guys abroad. Thank you very much, Congressman, for making the trip up here. You know, our government in Canada, Congressman, has been killing so many energy projects. They killed the Energy East project, which would have taken 1 million barrels a day of Western oil to New Brunswick. And so TransCanada became TC, and I think they went and bought a bunch of pipelines in Texas. And then Kinder Morgan was building a pipeline to the Pacific, and the government effectively killed it with red tape, and they had to buy it. So Kinder Morgan took the money from that taxpayer-funded purchase, and what did they do with it? They went and spent it in Texas. So here in Canada, we like to say all our exes are in Texas. We're talking about pipelines and not ex-girlfriends. But we say this in the friendliest possible way. Our mission is to repeal these anti-energy laws, reverse these policies, and start bringing some of this money back to our country so that we can prosper on this side of the border. And we look forward to getting a deal with our friends, our American friends, to end the tariffs on both sides of the border and allow both of our peoples to prosper. And I know that that is a dream that you hold dear and with which I hope that we get a chance to work together. So thank you again, Congressman, for making the trip all the way from Dallas. And you know, there's a story of a doctor who administers a poison into his patient. And the patient starts to panic as he's feeling his lungs tighten and his chest seize up. And then the doctor quickly administers the antidote and saves his life. And so the patient says, he says to the patient, you're all better now. And the patient says, well, why did you poison me in the first place? Well, he said, if I didn't poison you, then I couldn't have given you the antidote, and I wanted to save your life. And so the patient scratched his head. But when you think about it, that is really the nature of government policy today in Canada. Let's give a few examples here. So we have housing. I was just talking with Peter Van Loan, who works at getting housing approved. We have the second slowest building permits in the OECD. The development charges to build a new home have gone up by over 1,000%. 60% of the cost of a new home built in the Greater Vancouver area is government, taxes, fees, charges, etc. So they block home building. And then they say, we don't have enough homes. We need a government program in order to subsidize home building. And they create these monstrous government programs at CMHC and elsewhere in order to subsidize back to life that which they had suffocated in the first place. And then you have the energy sector. They pass legislation that makes it so it takes 10 to 15 years to get a permit for a mine. Actually, it takes closer to 20 years if you start from scratch to get a mining permit in Canada, which is one of the slowest places in the developed world. And then they create massive corporate welfare funds to subsidize the natural resource sector, including, as I said, buying a pipeline. And then you've got taxation. With high personal rates of taxation, we drive more and more investment out of our country, high levels of capital gains tax, punish those that invest in our enterprises. And then they turn around and say, well, we need a $15 billion Canada Growth Fund to subsidize the very businesses and the investment that we've been driving away. It's like President Reagan said, if a liberal sees something that moves, he taxes it. If it keeps moving, he regulates it. And when it stops moving, he subsidizes it. And that has been the model for our economy for the last 10 years. The results are clear. $500 billion of net investment has left Canada for the United States. And by the way, it wasn't always the case. In the Harper years, depending on which year it was, anywhere between $30 and $100 billion more Canadian investment was active in Canada than there was Canadian investment in the States. But because of the high taxes and the brutal red tape, the blocking of our resource projects, more and more of our money, including our pension funds, is fleeing our country to places where it can get a return. And so the answer to bringing it back is to unleash the free enterprise system. Our goal in Canada should be to make this the freest economy in the world, that we unlock the incredible power of free exchange. I call it the double thank you. When you walk into a coffee shop and you buy the coffee and you thank the lady who handed it to you, and what does she say? She doesn't say you're welcome. She says thank you. And that's because the money you paid her is worth more to her coffee shop than the coffee she parted with. Just like the coffee is worth more to you than the money you paid for it. If I have an apple and want an orange, you have an orange and want an apple, and we trade, we still have an apple and orange between us, but we're both richer because each of us has something more valuable to us than we had before. Now, taxes and government are a little different. In government, everything is done by force, not by voluntary exchange. And that's why nobody ever writes thank you on their tax forms. Even though it's meant to be it's a transaction. You're supposed to be buying all these services. Well, why is nobody ever writing thank you on those forms? Well, because of course it's all done by force and coercion. Free and voluntary exchange guarantees one thing, and this is a truism. Both parties must believe they're better off or they wouldn't be doing it. That is the genius of free exchange of work for wages, product for payment, investment for interest that characterizes the free enterprise system that we need to reinstill in this country. And that means repealing the anti-energy laws. Let's set a goal at all three levels of government, and let's get our business community rallying around it, that this should be the fastest place anywhere on earth to get a building permit so that you can just build stuff. We should be able to approve a pipeline or a mine within 6 months to a year by repealing C-69, C-48, getting rid of the tanker ban, the energy cap, the plastics ban, the electric vehicle mandate. Let's get rid of all of that and allow consumers and businesses to make their own choices about the products that they want to buy. We just put forward a motion in Parliament this week to reverse the electric car mandate that they're putting in starting next year. We're going to get rid of that mandate and we're going to put you back in the driver's seat to decide what you drive and where you go. And then there's the taxes. We have to make this the most attractive place to succeed. If you're a Waterloo grad, you come out of university with an advanced engineering degree, you can work in Canada for a 70-cent dollar, pay 53% tax, and pay $1.3 million for an average home. Or you can go to Texas, and what's the marginal tax rate there? Oh. I hope there's no, he said, I asked him, what's the tax rate in Texas? He said, I don't know, what, tax? I haven't heard of that. I don't know what that is. I hope there's no young engineers in this room. I think we might have lost them. And then you can, how much does it cost to buy a nice house in your district? $320. Wow, so about $500,000 Canadian. $500,000 Canadian, you can't get anything for $500,000 Canadian. Just so you know, in Canada, it's the average price where we are here is over $1 million Canadian. So what, 700, I don't know, I'm doing the math off the top of my head, 750,000. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm staying here, Congressman, because we're going to fight for our people to have the opportunities that they deserve. We're going to reinstate a system, a free enterprise that frankly flourished in this country for a very long time. We had one of the freest economies in the world. In fact, some of the institutes rated our economy as being even more open and free than the American economy as recently as 2014. And that is the mission that we have to carry out now. We have to cut the taxes, unleash our entrepreneurs, allow the free exchange of ideas, of labor, of energy, and of all of the immense products that we have. We have such potential in this country. We've got the third biggest supply of oil, that we're the fifth biggest producer of natural gas. We have the biggest oceanic coastline anywhere in the world, the most uranium, the most potash. We have more land per capita than any other developed country. We are the future here in Canada. All we need to do is unlock the potential that we have in our nation. In the words of the great John Diefenbaker, whom Anna, my lovely wife, is tired of hearing this quote over and over again, but she has to hear it one last time. I am a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to worship God in my own way, free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all of mankind. Thank you very much. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much, Pierre, and you certainly won't find any argument in this crowd. One of my favorite analogies when you talk about too much government is if you expect government to stimulate the economy, it's like giving yourself a blood transfusion from one arm to the other, except you spill half of it in between. And that's government. I'd just like to make a few remarks. I know we're already kind of late, and that's what usually happens with this kind of event. But in any event, I just want to make some brief remarks about what CCMBC has been up to. It's been an incredibly busy year, as you can imagine, with provincial elections, federal elections, Ontario election, and of course, what's going on in the US and Canada right now. And I thought this year it was appropriate to have this Canada-US theme, given all of those developments. Our constituency was very disappointed in the federal election in Canada, although there was certainly a significant gain in the number of seats and the percentage of the popular vote. But naturally, even a Liberal minority government was not our ideal outcome, to put it mildly. The coalition was registered as a third party, which basically means that we registered so that we could advertise, promote, whatever, and we were the first business group that came out with a press release supporting Pierre and the Conservative Party of Canada. So that was something that we did right from the get-go. And a lot of business organizations are afraid to do that because they want to make nice or they don't want to rock the boat or whatever. But boat rocking is something that we quite enjoy, I have to tell you. So we thought there was no question that which party deserves support from our business constituency. I have to say Mike and Sue Rose also, who will be speaking a bit later, they also were signatories to a letter from many CEOs from the natural gas and oil industry supporting the Conservative Party, because that was the most logical. It was really a no-brainer. But so many business leaders are afraid to do that. They want to stay in the shadows. They don't want to do that kind of thing. And I commend both of you for coming out and doing that and making it public and making your views and very, very substantively related to policy, and I always say it's not a partisan thing. I got along pretty well with Paul Martin back in the day. He kept trying to get me to run for the Liberal Party, which I wasn't going to do. But no, I mean, I've gotten along just fine with Liberals in the past. It's not partisan. It's the particular policies that are being promoted by the Trudeau government, and now we've yet to see what the Carney government. There's been a lot of talk. There's been some contradictory talk. And we're not sure. When we see action, maybe then we will be able to gauge what this current minority government will be wanting to do. And just yesterday, I was asked at the last minute to testify before the Federal Parliamentary Committee on Transport on Bill C-5. And Bill C-5 is the one that basically gives the federal government the right to override just about any other piece of legislation in Canada. And in front of the committee, I said, maybe you should call this bill we now want the power to override what we've done for the last 10 years. I mean, it's an absurd situation because they want to override the emissions cap. They want the tanker ban on the West Coast. All these stupid, the Impact Assessment Act, all these stupid things that the Liberals put in power. And now they're saying, we'd like to override them when we feel like it. But they still want to leave them on the books. Well, that's a big problem. We've had, as I mentioned, we've had a bunch of elections. We've made many, many submissions to governments, press releases, budget submissions, and so on. We have some magazines on your tables. We produce a monthly magazine. We usually only do it electronically, but we did put just a handful of copies out. And by the way, if anybody wants a copy that can't get one, please let me know, okay, and I'll do it. The magazines we distributed tonight, one is called The Next Battle, and we have Danielle Smith, one of our previous award winners, on the cover and talking about the fact that we're now going to have a big fight, I believe, between Ottawa and our resource-producing provinces in Canada. The other one is actually an older magazine. We did a commemorative magazine about the horrific events of October 7th. We did it last fall. It was the 1-year anniversary. And, I got questioned by some business people. They said, is this really our business? Well, if we don't have security in our country, in our world, ask some of the Jewish-owned businesses exactly how they liked having people outside their businesses protesting, being disgraceful. And I believe that's very much a business issue. And so we did a magazine to commemorate that, and I hope, and again, if you want a copy, I have more copies. I just didn't distribute them all tonight because I believe that is all of our issue. And of course, we see the world right now upended by Middle East war, basically, is what's going on now. So there's a lot of issues that the coalition gets into, which maybe people think aren't typical business issues, but they really do affect the business community. And I have to reinforce, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, we don't take a red cent from any level of government. And you might think, well, that's kind of normal. No, it's not normal. Every single other business group that I'm aware of does take money from governments, and that totally compromises them. Jocelyn was referring earlier to the fact they're not really serving their members, they're serving themselves. And we will never succumb to that. We always want to remain independent. It's why we can do the kind of lively, kind of kick butt things that we can do. I remember times government officials have said to me, well, we're going to cut off your money. I said, hey, knock yourself out. We don't take any. So, and they, of course, don't like that very much. But that is so, so important. I don't think people realize how much most business organizations are compromised by the fact that they are partially and often significantly funded by governments at all levels. I want also to mention the fact that, well, actually, it's something that if you ever want to see what government bribery does to any entity, look what's happened to our media in Canada. Our legacy media is so compromised, they do not report the truth. They are immensely biased, and this wasn't the case 20 or so years ago. That funding, I've often said the smartest thing the Trudeau government ever did was bribed media, and the most disgusting thing media did was accepting those bribes, because it has compromised media, and your average Canadian that isn't involved in the issues like we are here in this room, they buy, that's where they get their information, and it's totally unreliable information. So that's an utter disgrace. I'd also like to, as some of you know, I like to refer to memes, and if I could ask our AV colleague to put up some of the memes that I've found entertaining this year, I'd like that very much. We do a lot of work on energy-related issues because naturally energy is very important to manufacturers. And you might have heard there's an energy transition going on, and indeed, recently it was seen one of the last coal-powered sheep, because most sheep seem to be electric now. And of course, we all know that there isn't really an energy transition going on at all. The world is just as dependent on fossil fuels as it ever was. But I thought that was kind of a fun little image. Electric cars. Well, here in Ontario and federally, there's been tens of billions of dollars devoted to various things with electric cars, but it is a plan that doesn't work to fix a problem that doesn't exist. We've seen so many people, thankfully, the pendulum is starting to swing back, but here we've lost everything, including our net zero emission illusions. And that is still, it still hasn't gone far enough, but at least it's starting to move in the right direction. I thought instead of Economic Consulting Inc., we should have had Canadian federal government here, but how's that report on improving Canada's productivity going? Well, I haven't started it yet. We've seen immense incompetence from our federal government and some provincial governments too lately, and that has to be rectified. This is a terrible issue. Again, you might not consider it a business issue, but it is an issue of principles where we want to make girls' sports female again. I also thought this was kind of interesting because it's a reflection on our education system, sadly, our public education system. When you're 8 years old, you learn that you're responsible for slavery, the Holocaust, Crusades, and the colonization of Africa. Well, it's a pretty depressing scenario. The kind of stuff that's taught in our schools these days should not be inflicted on our children. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, something else that's inflicted on our children, or how to fix a flat tire by letting the air out of the other three. And finally, I kind of think this pertains to the federal Liberals, because boy, it was all elbows up there. And suddenly after the election, those elbows have never been up again. Once elected, the wolf is going to become a vegetarian. The day Al Gore was born, there were 130,000 glaciers on Earth. Today, only 130,000 remain. And this, to me, there has not been one comment from the so-called green or climate crusaders, whatever you want to call it, not one of the threats has become true. And this is just another example of that. When we see some of our leftists supporting governments who would kill them, who would basically kill them if they were in their countries, I'm amazed at the LGBTQ coming up and saying, you know, things like queers for Palestine. It is like chickens for KFC. And recently, you're probably aware, a bunch of Canadians went over to Egypt and tried to tell them that they were wrong on Palestine. Of course, Egyptians know very well what was going on, and they actually got flogged over there. I shouldn't have laughed because it wasn't funny for those people, but it just showed you we tolerate this garbage in Canada. Those countries that have endured it for decades or centuries in some instances, they don't tolerate it. And here's our public school system. You come in with all kinds of varied interests. You come out as a homogeneous blob. And this doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help our kids, doesn't help our businesses, doesn't help our economy. And this was pertaining to the capital gains, which fortunately temporarily has been at least suspended. And we're very hopeful, and we oppose this strenuously, this increase in the inclusion rate of the capital gains tax. But that's what it would end up being. One day, none of this will be yours. Let's see, can't quite read the print is a little bit hard to read here, but the dishwasher is saying, I hate to tell you, kid, but we all have PhDs in English literature. Finally, I thought this quote was interesting because it's very true. We live in a time where intelligent people are being silenced so that stupid people won't be offended. And this is where we see the merit principle not promoted anymore in our education system, in many businesses, and so on. So I'd like to close that there. At this point, introduce Brian Gould. He's one of our board members. He's the CEO and founder of Aspen Leaf Energy, based in Calgary, to introduce Mike Rose from Tourmaline Oil Corp.
Thanks, Catherine, and what a pleasure to be in a room full of entrepreneurs and people that support free enterprise. Now, you might wonder why a bunch of guys from Calgary came to Toronto. And no offense, Mike, but we actually had two objectives. First off, we're here to repatriate our next Prime Minister of Canada. And I got to tell you, Torontonians, we're bringing him back home to Alberta. And Pierre, you challenged a number of us to stand up for our industry and for business. And I can't thank you enough for that. And as you know, many of us signed letters in support of the principles that we believe in, and you encouraged us to stand up for ourselves, and I just want to acknowledge that great leadership. I have to tell you, on my tax return, I did say something you, but it was not thank. Now, Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose is being awarded with the Game Changer of the Year award. I've known Mike basically through my whole career. I think we've known each other, Mike, for more than 4 decades. We started our careers at Shell. And I got to tell you that Mike is the Bobby Orr of the oil and gas industry. He plays the game differently. He sees the field differently. Mike had an up and coming rising career at Shell, and most normal people would have been happy that that was good enough, but not Mike. So Mike left Shell in an entrepreneurial spirit, and he started his first company called Berkeley Petroleum. Huge success, sold the company for 9 figures, and again, a normal person would have said, that's it for my career, I reached the pinnacle. But not Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose goes and starts his next company, Duvernay Oil. And of course, not satisfied with selling his first company for $1 billion, he sells his next company for $6 billion. And the story is, you might say, who was dumb enough to pay $6 billion for their company? Well, I got to tell you, you're looking at him right here. Now, again, any normal person after starting and selling 2 companies successfully would stop, but not Mr. Rose. And so Mr. Rose starts Tourmaline Oil, as you've heard, Canada's largest producer of natural gas now. Now, just to give you some sense of scale of what Mike has achieved, they produce about 640,000 barrel oil equivalent a day of product. Now, in the developing world, the average person in the undeveloped world, the average person uses 3 barrels of oil a year. So you can think of Tourmaline as providing energy for over 75 million people every year. And I think that's incredible. Now that's Mike's business success, but for me, that's not what defines Mr. Rose. He's a man of extraordinary character. He's dedicated to his family, to his community, to the industry, and to our country. And so I ask you to warmly welcome Mike Rose, a great Canadian and game changer of the year.
Thank you for the very kind words, Brian. Catherine and Jocelyn for organizing all this. This is just a fantastic room. I think we're all very aligned. Yes, we're from Calgary. I actually grew up in Streetsville, Ontario, and our mayor was Hazel McCallion, and she used to come to my parents' Christmas party. I remember I was a helping bartender at 16 years old. Things were different then. And having to lug Sam out of our basement, her long-deceased husband, and prop him in the passenger seat so she could drive 2 miles down the road to where she lived. But Mississauga took over Streetsville, and then Hazel took over Mississauga, and I think many of you know her here. And congrats to everyone in here, all you small, medium, and large manufacturing, all different sectors. You know, we're oil and gas, but we all depend on each other. And Sue and I don't need to win anything. We're just doing what we think we should, and there's so many people in here working and advocating for all our common causes who are equally or more deserving of this. But we're honored and thankful, and I'm sure Sue will give a far more articulate and sensitive thank you than that. So just a comment on this Game Changer award and designation. Sue and I are very lucky to have 3 wonderful sons. They all turned out to be pretty good baseball players, so other than doing oil and gas, this is sort of what dominates our life. But if your kids are playing competitive level high school ball or college ball, you can actually follow all their games on an app called Game Changer. And it's on my phone. I can actually watch. One of my kids is playing right now, and I can watch it. So it's kind of ironic that we win the Game Changer Award. Our last kid is in his final year of college, so I was thinking maybe we could start getting advocacy messages into the Game Changer app, and maybe that's something you can work with, Tor, I don't know. But I'll talk a little on the macro, the resource wealth that this country is blessed with, and what we should be doing with it. Sue will focus more on how advocacy will help all of us get it done. So we actually talked before this, so a couple times a year, it doesn't hurt. But obviously Canada's blessed with an abundance of resource wealth, you know, be it minerals, forests, oil and gas, water, and I think we're world leaders at developing all of it. I'll stick to oil and gas tonight in the interest of time, but just to twist a really dumb quote from someone a decade ago, it's probably a fellow who inspired a lot of the advocacy we do, but I twisted it to Canadians are continually using what's between their ears to do an ever better job of developing what's beneath their feet. I think you probably remember what the original quote was. But on to the slide, and sticking with the baseball theme, curveballs are hard to hit, and we in the oil and gas industry have had nothing but curveballs thrown at us for a decade, as I think you well know. And you can only spend so long fouling a curveball off till you get your fastball, but we're still waiting for that. So this is the list of all the major league curveballs that have been thrown at us, and both Pierre and Catherine referenced some of these. And lots of positive talk lately, but none of those have actually gone away yet. So you recognize C-69 and the emissions cap and net zero. I find the emissions cap probably the most egregious because despite emissions coming from all sectors and from industry and consumers alike, it would only apply to oil and gas, so that was a bit mystifying. So at the end, the previous regime wasn't even trying to hide the fact that their real goal of most of their environmental legislation was to eliminate Canadian oil and gas and not improve the environment. But we survived, and as the world becomes far more insular and competitive, the importance of this sector for improving the economic situation across the country, I think, has become increasingly apparent. And a good portion of the developed world is very quickly figuring out that most of the initiatives on this page are unnecessary and wildly uneconomic. So hopefully they all go away. I think you can read them. I missed one. I missed decarbonization, which is, and we have peers in the oil and gas industry that use that term regularly, which it makes absolutely no sense at all. Because after you're finished with oil and gas, I think we're made of carbon, so maybe we're next. But anyway, that's a bit too conspiracy theory-like. But the new regime is saying all the right things about growing our oil and gas production and diversifying our infrastructure. If they follow through, and that remains to be seen, then the country will be in better shape. And the sad thing, it's pretty much everything Pierre was planning to do, but we'll get you, get you back. It kind of feels like we've been locked in an undersized dog kennel for over a decade by regulation like C-69, so we kind of say it's time to drop the leash. And Leash is one of my favorite and Sue's least favorite Pearl Jam songs. But if you've ever listened to it, it's an awesome song. But there's some interesting facts on there. Of the top 8 oil and gas producers in the world, only 2 are democracies, us and the United States. Of the top 8 producing nations in the world, only 1 has carbon taxes, and that's us. And so we're handicapping ourselves. It's like running a marathon with weights. And I've actually figured out over the years how to keep my weight belt permanent, but so I don't run marathons. Looking at Canadian natural gas, which is kind of what our company does, and LNG specifically, I think the 2 charts in the middle really quantify just the opportunity we have. The emission reduction that comes from replacing coal for electrical generation, it's, you guys don't need numbers during dinner, but it's a lot. It's 15.4 megatons per BCF. So if we grew a 10 BCF a day Canadian LNG industry, which is where we were headed back in 2008, that first 10 BCF a day ended up on your coast. But we're fortunate to get another crack of it. But that 10 BCF a day industry would offset 50% of all the emissions from the Canadian oil and gas sector, including oil sands. So it's just a massive, obvious opportunity. During the past, 5 or 6 years, Paris Article 6 has been used as sort of a blocking mechanism for Canadian LNG as to who gets credit for the reductions. And our opinion's always been there's only one global atmosphere. There's no plexiglass around countries. So if a BCF a day of Canadian natural gas via LNG lands in China or India or Thailand, that's a win for the globe, full stop. So let's just claim it and let's get going. There's noise from the south, and a lot of it is noise. Well, let's make Canada the 51st state and so on. But independent of all that, we're beholden to some skinny bureaucrats sitting in cafes in Paris or Brussels or Ottawa playing games with emission accounting. It's ridiculous. So let's drop that leash. I think recent polling indicates that up to 75% of Canadians support building more oil and gas pipelines, even a majority in Quebec. So we should take advantage of that while the opportunity's there. But what could we do? It's all on that slide. We have a fabulous array of opportunities, both for gas and oil, and most of them aren't new. You'll recognize the names, and I won't go through them all. But if we actually executed on a good portion of this, we really would be a global energy superpower, and we'd have the best performing economy in the G7 or G20 for a very, very long time. I think we should ultimately build them all. Just be careful not to do too many at the same time and create inflation. On the gas side, you know, it's going to be a watershed for Canada coming up here. There's a 60-foot flare at Kitimat right now. The first boat arrives June 29th. The loaded boat supposedly is leaving July 8th, and Canada will actually truly be in the LNG game. It's completely undersold. This is a milestone. It's the most expensive infrastructure project in the history of the country, and it sort of seems like we're opening up a new Canadian Tire. But this is big. But if you do LNG Canada Phase 2, Rockies or Sea Limbs, which we're in, and Cedar, then you got 6 BCF a day on the coast. That matters. That's a meaningful business. It accomplishes the diversification of markets that I think is a good idea for the country, and we'll see where we go from there. But in the long term, you know, despite what we hear, the US needs lots of Canadian gas, and they're going to need a lot more of it by the end of this decade. We spend a lot of time on that. As 2 of their 3, they're on that slide, but the slide's too small on this screen. 2 of their 3 big gas supply basins, other than the Permian and your Texas, are going to hit their tipping point, and the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin that we live in is going to be counted on for more and more gas to source the Gulf Coast liquefaction. So Canada's got a massive opportunity on the West Coast, diversify your markets, and more and more gas to the US. I talk to our premier occasionally. I like the idea of a gas pipeline going straight south from Alberta to the Gulf Coast, run it along the old Keystone XL route, but sell gas, and then build the last spur from Oklahoma to the Gulf. There's a lot of bad kind of karma about Keystone XL, so maybe you call it something like Alberta Express, but I think that's one that has a good shot at getting built. It's not one that's in the public domain yet. I think several people mentioned Energy East. That's the most controversial oil pipeline, but in my mind, that's the one that absolutely should get built. Because it would actually make Canada oil self-sufficient, because we still bring 1 million barrels a day into the country from less desirable regimes, and we would eliminate that and use Canadian oil. It would also eliminate the risk from Gretchen, the Wicked Witch of Michigan, which is a big risk that we should pay attention to, because she's trying to block Line 5 all the time. If you build all the pipelines on that map, well, you better keep them full, and you better keep them full for a long time. So a logical question is, you know, can we do that? And the answer, you knew it, but we most certainly can. That shows all the petroleum basins in Canada. All we ever think about is the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, and it will source every pipeline on that map for as long as we can see. We're blessed. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The Montney, which you people hear about regularly, we've produced 31 out of 645 TCF. So it's, you know, still in the top of the first inning. But I put this slide in because I knew I was coming east to show we have all kinds of other basins and opportunities in this country. They're largely ignored. And most of these opportunities are off limits because of federal, and at times, it's not just the federal government, provincial restrictions. So Brian mentioned that he and I started at Shell. Well, I spent 14 years there, and of my career, the first part, Sue spent 5 years of hers there. She's quite a bit smarter than me, so she got out of there quicker. But I did get to see an awful lot of this, because I would dig around in files, and I just found all this stuff super interesting. So offshore West Coast, it's beautiful. There's all kinds of like things partially delineated, oil and natural gas, completely off limits. It's not a lot different than offshore California, but at least it got started there so they can sustain what they have now. Off limits, you can't drill. There's things to follow up, but we're gonna run tankers by daily, lots and lots of tankers. So why don't we go find out what we have there? The Arctic and the East Coast, they're sort of open, sort of not. The Utica play in the Marcellus area, but it's a separate zone. It doesn't stop at the border, so there's wonderful gas reserves in Quebec on the south side of the St. Lawrence River. I've looked at a lot of stuff in there. It's actually pipeline spec gas. You don't even have to process it. So it is the most logical supply source for East Coast LNG. You could bring it all the way across the country, but pipeline tolls get pretty expensive if you have to build new ones. And turns out Quebec, I think you guys, they keep that quite quiet, but they're gonna need a lot more natural gas very, very soon because their whole energy stack is starting to get a little fragile. So I kind of hope I last long enough to stand up a rig on the south side of the St. Lawrence and watch Mr. Guilbeault and Trudeau and Legault wet their pants. So. But really the most important point about all this, time is the great healer. The world's increasing energy demands, might not be in my lifetime, but all of this is going to get developed, and that's wonderful for Canada. And it's just more and more resource that you probably didn't even know we had, and it's probably good for geologists too. So I think we all love the idea. It sounds good. We could get hockey sweaters of Canada as an energy superpower, but to me, what makes sense is a continental North American energy superpower, working together with the United States, being the prime supplier of oil and gas to the world. We can We can permanently diminish OPEC and Russia and actually displace them in key markets. And I made this slide before all the current crisis in the Middle East. But we have a myriad of opportunities and we have some current advantages, but they won't last forever. Resource plays, they're not confined to North America. We just have a huge piece of the oil field service suite here. We got the infrastructure all built so we can economically develop them. But there are enormous shale and fine-grained sandstone resource gas plays all around the world. We need to get in front of this, and once you get the gas on boats via LNG to those countries, you got their markets. And I think we could be shipping LNG off all four coasts of North America in fairly short order and take advantage of that. The US is generally long production, short resource, ultimately. Canada's the opposite. We're long resource, short production, and we're short production mostly because of government regulation and inability to access, but we have a chance to fix that. I think this works, and then the flywheel that helps the whole country, it's resource plays, the natural gas plays that the world depends on now decline every year, and they decline by about 30% a year. So if we had that 10 BCF a day complex on the west coast of Canada, we'd have to spend $20 billion a year in Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan just to keep production flat. And how that helps Ontario and the rest of the country is all the tubulars, all the equipment, all the chemicals, an awful lot of what we use gets made here. So it's just a huge flywheel of royalties and jobs. So, and again, having the only two democracies being the main supplier of oil and gas to the world seems pretty logical. And oil and gas are still 80% of the total energy stack. Demand is growing, not diminishing. I know lots of you in this room probably follow the group that Arjun Murthy runs, and he points out that there is no energy transition. I think, Catherine, you mentioned that. The world set the all-time record for consumption of every energy source there is on the planet in 2022. I haven't seen the 23 stats. I'm sure they're the same. So maybe the configuration of the slices in the energy pie, maybe they're changing. Fossil fuels are still 80% of the slices. but the pie is getting faster than anything. So there actually is no energy transition. We've only ever transitioned off whale oil. That's it. So Sue's going to talk about advocacy, so I'll end with what we together and with all our industry advocacy and our company. You probably noticed we're not afraid to put our logo on any of these slides because this is what we say in private, this is what we say to investors, and we aren't afraid to say any of this publicly. But the first three are kind of no-brainers. Energy is the backbone of our current civilization. The true story. The whole, having to pick which energy source, that ended a long time ago. It's an and discussion, not or. We need more of everything. So as an oil and gas producer, it's an easy discussion to have now. Well, we should be doing renewables. The answer is we should be doing renewables, more oil and gas. We should be doing it all. We can try hydrogen. It's a little expensive, but someday there's a place for everything. Lots of us in this room are involved in advocacy, and it's really aimed at making Canada better, ensuring a strong future for our children. We're all going to be fine, but it's our children and their children that we worry about. Fighting government overreach and ensuring freedom. Sue and I are passionate about this. We've helped lead over the last while an industry effort to coordinate multiple advocacy initiatives, more funding, more interbreeding, if you like, and it's all designed to just educate the public about the multiple positive aspects of Canadian oil and gas. I think we're all disappointed that our party, lost the election. And there's a tendency to withdraw when that happens. Like I'm sure the Oilers are all hanging out in their basement and they're not coming out for a week. But that is the tendency when you drill a dry hole as a geologist. Same thing, you just don't want to see anybody. But that's absolutely the wrong thing to do at this point because the enemies of freedom and our specific industry that we have to deal with, they're always hard at work. And we need to be equally relentless. So I think we're slowly changing the game. There is logic starting to creep in, and Sue and I will continue to try and be game changers in whatever way we can. So once again, thank you.
Although, Jocelyn, I must say, I was going to say the phrase of the evening goes to you for rock the boat. Beautiful phrase, but then Mike Rose, I think, kind of stole it with that powerful line, "We are not afraid." It was very powerful when Mike said that. And those of us in media, it's our job to rock the boat from time to time. It's what we get paid for. It's what we've got to do. Those of us in politics who run for office, it's our job to rock the boat as well. So we're comfortable doing that. But not always is everyone in the business community prepared and ready and willing to rock the boat. Although I hear more and more from many business leaders that they do want to start rocking the boat, that they're getting less afraid now. And full credit to Jocelyn for forming this organization a number of years ago, Catherine for running the organization, to be some of the first earlier movers of businesses saying, we are not afraid, we are going to rock the boat. So many of you in this room speaking up. Because when the politicians say it, when those of us in the media say it, well, okay, we can get it out there. But when business leaders say it, you know of what you speak. You've walked the walk. You've tread the terrain in all of the sectors. You have the knowledge and the expertise. So your words are so powerful, which is why it is so important to recognize and honor those trailblazing business leaders who are saying, we're going to rock the boat. We're not afraid. And like Mike Rose says, we're putting it in the presentations. It's right here in the PDFs. So it's a great honor for me to be able to welcome our next Game Changer honoree this evening, Sue Riddell Rose, joining us from Calgary. Like Mike, it's great to have them both coming out here joining us from Alberta. Sue began as a geological engineer 35 years ago, working for Shell Canada. She got experience in impressive roles in many companies all across the oil and gas sector. Now she is president and CEO of Rubellite Energy, creating jobs and opportunity and fueling the nation to help us with that economic fight and economic power that we need moving forward. Sue is also a community leader, a lot of community work she does, philanthropic work, and the past chair of the United Way of Calgary. Sue is a leading advocate for the important causes, for speaking up on the issues that inspire other business leaders to speak as well. And I know she's going to join us to tell us about the advocacy work she's doing. The Honorable Joe Oliver will join us on stage in just a moment to present the Game Changer Award to Sue Riddell Rose. But first, please join me in welcoming Sue to the stage.
Well, when Catherine asked us to, called us, I guess, a month or two ago, and said, hey, how would you like to come out? We've got this great Game Changer Award for you. We're super excited about this. And we said yes, because both Mike and I are really delighted to actually be here with a group that's doing so much good work, Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses. I've gotten to know you guys over the year because we're in the network together, and I'll talk more about the network. But it's just really important work that's being done, and I hope I communicate to you tonight that this is a big network, and what each of these groups is doing is actually super important. So huge thank you for all being here. Catherine and Jocelyn, you're rock stars. We just love everything that you're doing. We're really honored, Mike and I are really honored to be here too. And as I think everyone knows, that making change is a huge team sport. We're relentless perseverers. I think Jocelyn and Catherine and many in this room are relentless perseverers too. But we believe in the power of the team to make a difference, and we can do it together. So thanks again for a fabulous night. These are friends. We have friends tonight in the room. Our network is Friends Across Canada. They're really working at making Canada great again. And that's, sorry about the Trump allegiance. There's no Trump allegiance here. Although if I had been able to vote in the US, I probably would have voted for him. But I didn't have to. But Canada's like a great country with so much potential, and I think the passion for our country, the potential that everyone can see is really what everyone in this room has in common, so we're excited about that. Pierre, if you're still in the room, I'm not sure if you are. Thank you for listening and learning about the potential of Canada's oil and gas industry and all our other natural resources, and really your commitment to try to unleash Canada and really turning that knowledge, that listening and learning into solid plans that actually would lean on the energy sector to help make Canada great again. We all know that many of your ideas that are now on the public political agenda, that's actually what's leading the charge. So if it's any consolation, this is the Oscar Wilde quote, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. So Pierre, we're really appreciative of how you've listened and how you've embraced the sector and what we can do for Canada. Anthony, thanks for the kind introduction. Joe, so nice to see you again. We've gotten to know each other a little bit over the years. You're just a huge inspiration to everyone in the room, and the work you continue to do and be an advocate for energy is huge as well. So thanks for being here tonight too. And Mike, I'll say saving the best for last is Mike. In the past, I've actually dubbed Mike a saint, and I've actually said that publicly. So huge thanks for just being for coaching so many of us, supporting us, cheering us on, inspiring us to work hard and just be better people. And so many of us have been the recipient of all of that. So thank you for that. So I've had so many things to be grateful for in my life, not the least of which is the privilege to work in business. And it's such a platform for doing things that matter in the world. And everyone here, you're all part of businesses. Manufacturing is the focus, but we are all making a difference in the world, and that's what matters. People say, well, when are you going to retire? Well, I don't know why we would, because it gets harder to make a difference in the world when you move into that stage of your life. And this is like the sweet spot for doing it. And it's really on the back of business. And for us at Rubelite, we're finding oil and gas. We are finding and delivering, producing a fungible molecule, but it's making the world a better place. And our people know that, they get that. It's got a huge ripple effect to the economy. Our little company spends $100 million a year on capital, of another 100 on just running our business. It's a drop in the bucket for what the energy business does. Tourmaline spends $2.6 billion a year. The sector spends $50 billion a year. And think of the ripple effect, the enormous impact that has to the people local in around our operations, but all the way across the country to the manufacturing sector here, and making our energy affordable. It's just a huge privilege to be able to serve the community in that way. And when you think about serving the community, it's not just about the in the house impact. It's and every one of us in the room is actually making this. It's kind of what we do outside our company walls. And so when we're tapped on the shoulder and we say yes to make something better, we participate in our industry organizations, our chambers of commerce, being part of the Energy Advocacy Network, which I think is really what the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses is all about. Those things really matter and make a difference. So it was about 10 years ago that we all started realizing that we needed a whole new approach, though, to advocacy. And we've talked about not being afraid and standing up and saying things. But we also realized we had to do it differently. Like, it couldn't just be what our industry organizations were doing. It couldn't just be what the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers said. We weren't really making an impact. And so we actually stepped back and said, okay, what is going on here? 10 years ago, we realized that the voice against our industry, our opponents, had gotten so powerful. And how did they do that? How did we not even notice? So that voice had a 15-year head start on us, but they're coordinated, they're strategic. They created catastrophic climate change narrative with consequences so dire that we actually have a generation of kids that thinks they might not have children because it's not a safe world to bring kids back into. It's very difficult to prove them wrong. The science is settled. That's their dialogue. They've penetrated. They manipulated the voices of our Indigenous communities. They penetrated the schools, the universities, and they had free rein because there was no counter voice. We were not, even as industry, we weren't raising our voice to the public. We thought that all we had to do was talk to government, we would get good policy, and that would work. And then it turned out that our government was them, and that became very, very scary, actually. So it's evident that we had to do something different, and we needed a new tact, and we needed to get coordinated, we needed to get strategic, we needed to get well-funded, and we needed to get talking to the public. Our opponents could no longer be the only voice sharing the dialogue. We had to get some counter voice in there. So, I recall about 10 years ago visiting with Prime Minister Harper, who's still one of my very favorite people. And he told us very bluntly that industry is doing a very bad job of making space for good policy. We're not standing up for ourselves. They can't make good policy into the narrative that is going on right now. And then it became worse, of course, as the government changed. So we needed to get into the public advocacy world. It wasn't just about sending our GRP people to Ottawa anymore or to Edmonton. It really needed to change. So as a collective, we started to embrace this idea of multiple parallel voices. And I do have a couple of slides, actually. And you're not intended to read these slides, but just to see that we've kind of taken the same tact collectively as a group, whether we know it or not. There's all sorts of us that we don't even know about in this matrix, but taken the same tact that our opponents are taking that works so effectively. This multiple parallel voices. It's not just industry up there speaking even to the public or government, but it's many voices tackling many audiences. It's about who we're talking to, what we're talking about. It's how we're talking to them. We're supporting a network now, I would say, of about 120 different what we call thought leaders that are really taking these different messages and all kind of bringing the public into the narrative. And I think it's starting to work. Now, we had some really positive tailwinds the last little while. The affordability crisis actually happened to be a tailwind for us, which was great. The Trump tariffs, that's a huge tailwind for us. And so people started listening. But, I think that we're seeing the fruits of our labor starting to show up. So, when you think about this matrix, we've got all sorts of organizations, and some of the industry organizations are still in there. CAP, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, we finally found our lane. We say we're generating data with veracity for industry to support the groups in the public advocacy network and also for government. Canada Action, I talked to someone earlier tonight about I love Canadian oil and gas, and I said, oh, there's t-shirts for that, and everyone's seen those Canada Action t-shirts. And then Canadians for Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses. This is, you guys have a lane. You are talking with your voice to the people that can make a difference hearing your voice, and that's what the network is. And it's beyond just the groups and the network. We're actually getting coordinated. So we're talking to each other. We're coordinating campaigns. When the news flow actually supports no more carbon taxes, we're all talking about the same thing. And that makes a difference too when you've got many voices kind of saying the same thing at the same time. So huge positive momentum. And I'll just flip through some of the campaigns that you see out there by all sorts of different of these 120 plus organizations. And there's more than 120 because I found out there's some that we don't even know about. But and when I say we, I don't mean we like we're coordinating all of this. It's we're recognizing it as an industry. We're trying to support and fund, bring them together. But these often are just green grassroots organizations that have decided that they have something to say that matters, that they can make a difference for Canadians here. So social media campaigns, there's TVs, podcasts, news media. We heard about, Dan, you're up there. I don't know if you see yourself. We heard about the news forum today, and the mediums matter. There's billboards, transit, radio. You'll see this across the country, radio shows being hosted, billboards showing up. And lots gets written now in op-eds or in media, in the news. And these groups are connected to each other, documentaries being built, scholarship programs. It all matters. It's all making a difference. And, it's making a huge difference. So one of the groups that I want to maybe share a little bit about is a group called Canada Powered by Women. And this is a group that about 5 years ago, the super passionate group of ladies started meeting in Calgary, like, oh, what could we do about this? What could our voice be? And, it actually sometimes takes a little while to even figure out this framework and where your voice, what that voice has to sound like, but where it can actually be impactful. So CPW is part of the Thought Leader Network. Their mission is to inspire and facilitate positive conversations to influence the energy transformation dialogue. So we have a growing audience, and again, it's great to take advantage of the tailwinds. When we're talking to engaged women and we're listening to engaged women, and then our commitment is to amplify the voice of engaged women in this energy transformation dialogue. And there's a lot of things on this chart. You can't even really see the outline of Canada on there, which is fine, but I'll just tell you the gist of it is that the audience of engaged women is growing. It's probably more than doubled, and it's from our polling that we do with Leger, the audience of women in this conversation that are tuned in and want to be part of this energy dialogue is 6.7 million women in Canada, so 42% of the women in Canada. And they're not necessarily politically inclined. but they, in fact, most of them are in the middle, and they could go either way, but they're all passionately interested in this conversation, and it's making a difference. And really what we do is we talk to them about, or we try to understand their priorities. That's one of the things that we've been doing, and their priorities are really what I call the energy trilemma, but the priorities are balanced. They're first and foremost about energy security. That's affordability, reliability. They understand how important it is. They're also prioritizing the economy, and really that translates into their personal prosperity. And then environmental performance is important, but it's not perfection, it's just progress. Progress is important, not perfection. And so that's the energy trilemma. How do you balance all of those things? And when you solve it, I think you get the energy trifecta, which is, you find that right balance, and that is what we believe will unlock Canada's free enterprise, economy that's actually, where we can actually meet the potential that we have as a nation. So I pulled a few slides because I think that what the polling that Canada Powered by Women has done is actually very reflective of what we as a network, all of us here in this room, are making a difference in. So just Canadians are connecting the dots. 84% of Canadians now want, they recognize that natural resources is important, and they want to see resource development. 80% understand the tie back to the economy and are prioritizing that. 67% are actually connecting the dots that without it, we can't fund the things that make Canada great. Like our social programs, our healthcare, our education, like they're connecting those dots. And 63% actually say that, and recognize that we're actually doing this better than anyone in the world. It's cleaner here. This is the energy that the world should be seeing. So this is, these are all great things, and it's huge progress. And really, it's thanks to the network, because it's the network that is actually telling this story in so many different ways, and people are seeing it. Again, you can't see this, but just another proof point. Last year when we did this poll, 51% of Canadians believed that oil and gas was critical to a strong and prosperous economy. This year when we did this poll, 71% of Canadians felt that we were critical to a strong and prosperous Canada. This is huge progress. And again, it's not just in Alberta. It's stayed the same in Alberta, which was already very high, but it's up in BC, up in Ontario, up in the prairies, up in Quebec even. And they've even tipped over to now the majority actually believe that. So this is great progress. So congratulations to all of you for that. One of the things that actually became very evident is that there's this me and there's this we perspective. And we learned by listening to Engaged Women that it was kind of hard to break those things apart. But on the me side, they would think about affordability. That was front and center. Energy, though, they figured was at the heart of everything. And Canadians really understand now it's energy that is the solution for affordability. And you guys had some great proof points earlier, like what your, the inputs that you have into your businesses, massive influence from policy. Bad policy made that energy unaffordable and critically damaging your businesses. So people get that, and they get it at the personal level, and they get it at their business level. The we conversation is really about how do we collectively make Canada better? How do we drive prosperity for everyone? And all this tariff talk has really exposed our energy and our economic insecurity, our vulnerabilities. It's threatened the very sovereignty of Canada. It's changed the conversation from coast to coast to coast. But now people are really understanding our self-reliant, or our significant reliance on the US, our biggest trading partner, and the we conversation has become much more at the forefront of what matters to Canadians. And the great thing is that energy is our trump card. It is. It's our trump card. First off, Trump recognizes that we are a critical energy partner. And, being a North American superpower is where we need to end up together. And, with our energy, we're actually going to be able to make a difference. And that will be good for all our industries. So we'll get there, I think. The great thing is we've ignited this massive support again for energy infrastructure, and the numbers are off the charts in terms of support for new pipelines. 85% of the country now believes we should be building pipelines and expanding our exports, and that's up more than 50% from just 6 months ago. And it's probably up more because these poll numbers were actually done before the election, actually, before all the campaigning, before people were really listening about the story. And then again, the all of the above energy strategy. Canadians know that we need more and more energy, and that every form that we produce in this country, we use in this country is important. There's nothing that isn't recognized as critical. And as we continue to use more energy, we need more and all forms of it. So maybe I'll just say, how do we build on this momentum? Well, we have to build on that momentum. We have to double down in all the efforts that we're making on the advocacy side. We have to really maintain that sense of urgency. Like this is the moment in time to really push on this sense of urgency. And we're scared about what this government is going to do, but they're saying the right things. So we need to find ways to hold them accountable, and we need to get stuff done when we can. Mike and I have this thing that we call different planet syndrome, where we hear something that's like so far misaligned with our beliefs and values that we look at each other and we sort of say, did we wake up on the wrong planet today? It's usually when we're listening to CBC radio, another climate story. Anyway, sometimes it seems like our Western civilization is intent on forgetting the very virtues that we were founded and grounded on. Instead of embracing these virtues, though, we seem to have pressure to shift our worldview, scaring the daylights out of all of those who listen, always looking for the bad in things, undermining our self-confidence by trying to make us fearful of our future and ashamed of our history. So when you're in the flow of the news cycles, our politicians, activists, the media can make us feel like we're in a permanent state of crisis. Cultural criticisms everywhere, the climate crisis, the COVID crisis, the mental health crisis, the affordability crisis, the housing crisis. These are all crises, but they're not insurmountable because we have always, as humanity, met every one of these crises with ingenuity, and we can move through all of them with a system that allows us to actually do what we do best. As a civilization, we are perfectly capable of addressing these challenges, but we can't let ourselves nosedive into society that looks at capitalism and free markets with disdain, where religion's being diminished, where our family units are being broken down, where we disparage our history, and where we can no longer have balanced conversations and share viewpoints for fear of cancel culture. In the case of Bill C-59, the greenwashing bill, which is still on this government's agenda, they have not taken it off. The fear of dire economic consequences when we speak out loud, and we haven't canceled that policy. We need to actually hold governments to account as we work through this energy trifecta that we think that we can accomplish. So let's not allow governments to just be Band-Aids. That is what they're going to try to do. A project here, a project there, so they can say that they're doing the right things. We actually need to trust our free markets, trust our business leaders, trust our citizens, and get in action and embrace our chances to be part of doing some of those things that really matter, because that's what it really looks like when the best happens. So to all of us, let's keep working on these things. Our businesses deserve to take back our reputation. We're do-gooders. We're never perfect, but we're always well-intentioned and we're open to learn. So congratulations to you guys, the Canadian Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses, and to everyone that's leaning in on making change and doing the forces of evil that we've actually been led astray by as a nation, and getting back on track so that we can actually hit above our weight in making the world a better place for Canadians and all our global allies, the developing nations, for everyone. So thanks again for the honor tonight.
Our next guest and award winner has been a longtime friend of Canada's. His connection began through the collaboration with Henry Wells of the Canadian Consulate in Dallas, Texas many years ago. And I understand Henry Wells has come back from retirement so that that collaboration can continue. Pete Sessions represents Texas's 17th congressional district, home to significant Canadian investments like Norbord, Circle K, Golder and Associates. Those are just a few of the many names that are in his district. Service is in his DNA. Some of you may recall his father, Judge William Sessions, who worked for 3 presidents as the head of the FBI. He worked for Ronald Reagan, he worked for George H.W. Bush, and he worked for Bill Clinton. And it was Congressman Sessions' father who developed an excellent relationship with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police back in the day. Well, it seems that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Congressman Sessions continues the family tradition. He gained a deep appreciation for Canada in the aftermath of September 11th, when Canadians stood in full support of our neighbors during that time of need. In 2018, he delivered remarks in Ottawa at the Canadian War Museum, underscoring his respect for Canada's sacrifices and shared values. As chair of the powerful House Rules Committee, he played a key role in reauthorizing USMCA, or in our parlance, CUSMA, and that, of course, reinforced our trade ties. Recently, he wrote a thoughtful letter to Ambassador Hillman expressing concern over the federal liberal plastics registry, arguing that it could harm both Canadian and American businesses, potentially violating our trade agreement. So he wrote that letter not because he views the Canada-US relationship as essential, believing that growing our partnership is not only beneficial, but vital to our shared prosperity and security. So that is why CCMBC is awarding the Bridge Builder Award this year to Congressman Pete Sessions. Pete, please come on up and say a few words to the group, and we'll give you your award after.
Bess, thank you very much, and good evening to each of you. The chance that I had to come to Canada was one that's refreshing to me. I like to be here. I find so much commonality, not only with each and every one of you in your struggle for the freedom, but each one of you, I thought he was going to fall. That was pretty cool. But also the shared relationship between our two countries. Want to say probably 2 things that will take a total of about 4 minutes so that we can make it home tonight. Number 1, I prayed for Donald Trump to win. We worked hard for him. We went and sold the fight. We sold the fight off that we believed that where America was headed, we could not come back. We could not continue to be a great nation. And in fact, it was not seen as fear, it was seen as reality by people. And so I urge you to continue keeping the score, being able to tell the story, not just the result, but tell the story about what liberalism, what big government does, how it impacts its people, and what it drives away from young people who would want to have a brighter future, young people who would want to have a better job, young people who would want to make Canada better for your children and grandchildren. We effectively sold the fight, and we did it in a way to where people then believed it because there was truth to it. We found out then after the Bidens were gone with an organization that's called DOGE, which is about government efficiency. And I serve as the vice chairman for government reform and oversight am I responsible for all government operations. Any government operations anywhere in the world, I have the original jurisdiction to look after that and the federal workforce. We counted on the new administration to tell us internally when they got hold of the records, when they got hold of the actual checks and the payments and the numbers, we found out that it was as bad as we thought it would be. We had jurisdiction during the year where we spoke last year, where we spoke to the Biden administration, and they were pretty open about saying there was between $300 and $500 billion a year of misdirected payments, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And those misdirected payments came as a result of the government workers not going to work. They did not go to work, and in one instance, the largest government building in Washington, D.C., the Ronald Reagan building, because we got the people that have the security cards to let people in, we found out that less than 10% of people went more than 1 day a week for 4 years. What this correspondingly did is put the government asleep. And it's amazing if you don't come to work what happens when you don't do that. And so we are now selling to the American people that we will stop this $300 to $500 billion worth of money that was spent that was misdirected. A lot of people call it waste, fraud, and abuse. I call it misdirected payments because a lot of it just went out the door. They did not even take responsibility for it. And what this means is that we are now going to stop that. We're going to stop it, and we have a process by which we're going to do that. But it means that our left is now saying we're going to cut everybody's benefits. And so we are going to make sure that we cut not one person's benefit, but if you were receiving benefits and you didn't earn those, then we're going to make sure that we have more money left for the people who deserve them. So I want to say to each one of you that we all know in here that good times create weak people. Bad times, hard times create better people. And I would encourage you to buckle down and to do what it's going to take with employers to be able to talk to their employees, to know what's in the best interest. We more or less cut a deal this afternoon that we're going to work together. I'm going to work together on the American side. We're going to work together with the Canadian business side, and we're going to link arms and be influential, that we will be able to make sure that not just Canada, but the United States knows that when two great nations put their minds together, that we can make a difference. And in my opinion, we could have no better partners than the people of Canada and the business of Canada. So I just want to say to you, I really only want to come up here and say thank you. I want to make sure you know that America is your friend, that America wants more and more, not just of Canadian work that we do together, but that we do it together. And lastly, I only wanted to do well enough to get invited back, so God bless you. This Bridge Builder Award is significant to me because it represents something that Bess and I have been doing and Pierre and I have been doing. We believe if we work together, if we tell the same story with each other, that if we highlight each other between two great nations, we will be successful. I just don't have to tell you, but I come from the state of Texas that is going to lead the world in GDP, in new job growth and development, and perhaps more importantly, make our state better for our children and grandchildren for a long period of time. And we'd like to have you join us. Thank you.
I think we'll make it a more of a brief speech or presentation. Just bear with me in the last one of the night. So I'm in between you and your drive home. To make it briefer, could we cue that quick video up, and that'll tighten it up. And
you know, Canadian business owners deserve better, and so do the Canadians they employ. We're a nation of opportunity, of entrepreneurs and economic freedom. The Canadian way, the Canadian dream, you know, it's funded by small and medium enterprises, the ones that are the hometown heroes in each and every community across Canada. We have to remind ourselves, when businesses fail, a country fails. When small and medium businesses fail, job creation fails. We have less of a tax base. The math doesn't work. We can't afford public education, health, or CPP for retired Canadians. You know, Canadian business owners are so much more than the backbone or the economic engine of the country. They're the keystone. They're all that holds Canada together. I like to refer to Canadian business owners as the lions of the North. Inspired by an ancient proverb, it goes like this: until the lion learns to tell the tale, the story will be told by the hunter. You know, business owners, their story is Canada's story. What started as an award for the top 10 job creators in each riding has turned into what looks like is going to be the most powerful business lobby in the country. Your story as a business owner is Canada's story. It deserves to be heard, and it deserves to be celebrated.
I just want to, I guess, to go off script here a little bit. I want to thank the Congressman Sessions. You know, I'm a lifelong business owner, but from time to time I run elections here in Canada. And you said something earlier today in the roundtable. The business community has to lead this. And I think there's a lot of business owners here tonight, and just bear with me a couple minutes here. A lot of business owners here tonight. And actually, Jocelyn, I went back to the car to get this. In 2018, I was telling the congressman that I went with Premier Ford to meet with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. We had a 45 minutes scheduled audience. You recall President Trump was president at the time. And so I actually tried to keep my remarks brief, but we sort of hit it off, and the U.S. Trade Representative gave myself and Premier Ford 2 hours. And these are the cards that I presented to the U.S. Trade Representative that day. I think it resonated with the congressman. Here's what I said on behalf of Canada. One might think, or may be led to believe, that the runaway government spending in Canada and the United States is the most pressing problem. It's not. It's a big, massive problem that will continue to erode the Canadian economy and the American economy for decades to come. But it's not the biggest problem. That's because the lack of good jobs, high-paying good jobs, will become the root cause of all world problems that Canada, the US, and other countries will attempt to deal with through humanitarian aid, military force, and politics. Countries that fail at creating jobs, and there's a lot of job creators in this room tonight, countries that fail at creating jobs, their societies will fall apart. Countries, and more specifically cities, will experience suffering, instability, chaos, and eventually revolution. This is the new world that leaders will have to confront, both in Canada, in our country, Congressman, and in the United States. The answer, leaders of countries and cities must make creating good jobs their #1 mission and primary purpose, because good jobs, good manufacturing jobs, Jocelyn, are becoming the new gold medal. They're becoming the new currency for all world leaders. You want to become a global superpower or become 2 global superpowers? You want to advance, I'll end with this. You want to be pro-democracy, you want to be pro-jobs, and you want to be pro-free enterprise. Thank you. Of those 3, the most important is pro-free enterprise. And we have to develop a better narrative. As I said to the congressman last night, I watched a few NHL hockey players win the Stanley Cup, not on the team I was cheering for, Congressman, but I reminded myself that some of our best hockey players still take power skating once they make the NHL. As business owners, we have to get better with our narrative. We have to tell our story. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of important freedoms, but economic freedom is your very first freedom. Historically, it's what brought people to Canada. When my family settled here 400 years ago, it's what brings people to Canada more recently. And we have to remember that. And we have to remember the entrepreneurs that create economic freedom. So if you get a chance, go on the Keystone website, nominate a business owner that you know. Very simple criteria, number of jobs. I just want to thank the organization, Jocelyn, Catherine, great leadership. Thank you for what you do for Canada. It means a lot. And thanks everyone for hearing us out. And please make a nomination for the Keystone Award. Thank you.
That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you. As Jocelyn said earlier, you can really help by mentioning us to a couple of your business friends, bringing them to our next event, and so on. We'll continue to press on with our agenda. We know we've got a lot of challenges coming up in the next little while with this new federal government and a number of provincial governments too. So thanks again to everyone. I want to thank the Guild staff. They always do a lovely job. Thank you very much. I also want to mention one of our colleagues who is not here tonight, which is Kathy Leal. She does a lot of work in producing our printed material and our website and our social media and whatnot. So I want to thank her, even though she's not here tonight. Thanks very much, everybody. And that's it. That's all.